In this session, we'll be talking about the table calculations in Tableau. Right, probably the introductory aspects of it I'm going to take in this session, and the advanced calculations we can take up in our succeeding session. So, the table calculations are one of the most powerful feature of Tableau. So, they enable a good number of calculations which in general we may not be in a position to compute. Few things that they really help us. They help us to use the data that is not structured well. That data that is not structured well, it helps me to use that data, get the results without waiting for someone to fix the data at the source. And they also help us to perform some kind of comparisons or perform some kind of calculations on the aggregate values. Whatever the results that come out of the aggregate, I can do comparisons, I can do calculations across the rows, columns, etc. And so which means they are providing good number of additional possibilities for analyzing the data, and even some kind of creative approaches where I can do the visualization of the data. As we move, we can clearly see, so some kind of table calculations are very easy to create. Just with a couple of clicks, they are accomplished. Whereas some of them, they go very complex. I have to understand some important concepts like addressing. We'll talk about them slightly later in this session. I have to understand the concepts of addressing, partitioning. Only then I would be able to do the calculation. So that's how there could be some few easy table calculations, and in some cases the table calculations become pretty much complex also. So what we have to understand as a visualization expert is, how do I really create a table calculation? How do I use it? How does it work? All these things we really need to be comfortable with. So in this session, I thought we should cover some basic overview associated with the table calculation. Then we have an aspect of quick tables. We have used them earlier in some of the examples or in some of the sessions earlier. So we'll again have a quick understanding of this quick table. How does it help me? Then we'll understand two important concepts. One is scope and direction, right, which will help me in performing table calculations. More or less on the same note, but slightly more advanced, where I try to understand the addressing and partitioning as the concepts. How does these things help me in terms of performing table calculations effectively? Right, we can use one data set and we can try working out with this kind of a data set for all these examples. So what we'll do is, I'll use a simple data set which we have used earlier. Let's say I'll connect to an Excel file which was that superstore kind of a data. Right, I go to this Tableau repository where I had a data source 9.1 where I had superstore. So let me connect to this simple data store. Right, we had orders, peoples. I don't want to discuss too much on this. So this was our data. Right, we had orders as a data source. Okay. Now, just to give a broad high level overview of table calculation, they are different from others, as we have already talked about row level and aggregate level. So we said in Tableau there are three layers of calculations. Row level, aggregate level, or probably the third one is the table calculation. The first two of them, they do a query at the data source level. Whereas the table calculations, they are generally performed after the results of the initial query. So the results that come of the initial query, they are stored as a part of the cache, and before they are rendered into the view, from the cache the typical table query is executed. So that is where the differentiation comes. The results that are aggregated from the data source, they are stored in the cache, and the typical table calculations are executed on that cache. So before the visualization is rendered, the calculations are happening. So a few important points that we really need to understand regarding the table calculations is, one is we have to have a good understanding on the aggregation aspects. So the table calculations always operate on the aggregate data. They don't operate at a row level. So what we define as an aggregate, on that the table calculation is working. So I cannot reference the fields in a table calculation without referencing it as an aggregate. So whatever the fields that are there in the table calculation, all of them needs to be aggregates only. Without referencing it as an aggregate, I cannot access the fields of the table calculation. One aspect. Two, regarding the filtering, we need to have some level of clarity. Any filter, right, is getting applied before the table calculation. Any filter that I have to apply, it has to be applied before the table calculation, because the table calculations will be applied only to the data that returns from the source to the cache. So whatever filtering happens, it has to happen before that. And at the same time, we have a concept of late filtering, wherein we are talking of the filters are applied, one at the data source level in general, but if I have the table calculations itself used as filters, right, that is what we are calling as late filtering. The table calculations itself used as a filter, then the order that goes is the row level and aggregate level calculations, they happen first. Now that aggregated data is coming to the cache, and once the data comes to the cache, the table calculation itself is applied as a filter. So that one effectively hides the data from the view. When I take an example, this process becomes more easier. So this is more and more of a creative approach to solving different kinds of problems. So that's one more area where the table calculation becomes more and more handy. So let's look at all these aspects one by one. So the first aspect that we will look at is, how do I really create a table calculation? And the calculation which I have created, how do I typically edit that? Okay, a few locations where I can create. Now let's say I take the sales or profits, right? Let me take the sales somewhere here. So this is a measure, right? So I've taken the measure. From the measure, I have copied something into the row or a column. Now this becomes an active field. It is numeric. Now what I can simply do is I can do the drop down corresponding to this. This is where I have a quick table calculation. So we say running total, difference, percentage difference, all these things. They are the built-in quick table calculations that are there. Similarly, I can even go with this aspect. add a table calculation. Again, this one also talks about difference, percentage difference, blah blah blah. Again, some kind of mechanisms talking about calculate the difference along the table or something, display the value as a difference from something else. So these are the different kinds of values that are available. And I can also create the other way. I can create a calculated field, and I can here use one or more table calculation functions. Right? If I look at the table calculation function, there are so many. All these are table calculation functions. So if I use any one of these table calculation functions, I can write my own custom table calculations as well. So there could be a very simple way of writing a table calculation, or probably a formula kind of a way where I can write my own calculated field and I can use it as a table calculation. Now, anytime we create a table calculation, right? Let's say here, okay, simply put, let me drag the region, or what else, category. Let me drag the category here. So basically I am having for each of the category, these are the sales. Now all I can do is I can edit it, go to the quick table calculation, and I say percentage of the total. And now you see this comes out as 32.3%, this as 31.3, and this as 36.39. So this is coming as a percentage of total. And what you could see is there is a kind of a delta sign that you are seeing out here, which is an indication that it has used a table calculation. It's not a simple calculation on the data. Now, let's try to understand what is happening in the background. So, when we are talking about quick tables, they are more and more like predefined. Right? We have seen a few of those table calculations. They are more and more predefined. So they can be applied to any field that is used as a measure. Any field that it is numeric, it is used as a measure in the view, it can very well be defined. And a list of quick table calculations are already predefined and they are available in that drop down. So I can do some of them. If you look at the list, right, you can very well look at this quick table calculations. I can take a running total, I can take a difference, I can take percentage difference, I can do a percentage of the total, I can find the rank, the percentile, moving average, year till date total, the compound growth rate, year over year growth rate, and year till growth rate. So these are different kinds of quick table calculations I can perform on the data, and these don't come up as separate fields in the data window. Right? I don't see them as separate fields in the data window. So let's do a quick workout here. Right? Let me drag a few things. Okay. I don't need this. Okay. Now let's look at category. When I am pulling the category, what are the categories? Furniture, office supplies, and technology. All right. So I also have the segment. Let's see what the segment actually contains. So segment contains consumer, corporate, home office, right? Or probably if I say product, I'll say product. Oh, there are so many products looks like. add all the members. Oh, there are so many products, which is too big a number, so let's not deal with the product. Let's see what else. Okay, there is a subcategory. Let me try. Yeah, basically this list looks fine. Within the furniture, we have bookcases, chairs, furnishing, tables. And within office supplies, again, there are so many. And within the technology, there are so many. So these are my subcategories. These are my categories. Okay. Now, corresponding to each one of them, let's say I want to look at the sales. Okay, let me drag the sales out here. So these are the sales for each one. I can also drag sales again, right? Or probably simply put, instead of dragging the sales there, I'll drag the sales on the axis. So, okay, these are the sales, right? And probably let me replicate the sales as well. So I get one more sales out here. Now I can show it as a table to start with, right? I will take this, when I'm taking it as a table, yes, I am taking the sales, and let's say I want to drag sales once again, but this time I want to do a quick table calculation, right? I want to do a quick table calculation wherein I am looking at the percent of the total. So this sales also I want to drag here. So if you look at it, yes, now I am getting two aspects. One is the percentage of the total, right, as well as the individual level sales. So furniture, office supplies, technology. So these are the different numbers that are coming out, and these are the percentages associated with each one of them. So I got the sum of the sales, so probably if required I can change the order of them and I get a different representation altogether. So I got the individual level sales, and along with that I got the percentage breakups across, right? So the sales is shown twice. One is using the measure names and the measure values. So the second one is more of a percentage of the total. I had the quick calculation applied on the top of that. So whatever we are seeing as a percentage of the total sales is the sum of the sales for that particular department or category and subcategory divided by the total sales. So I was able to use the quick table calculation, means I was not required to do some kind of summations and then percentages and all that kind of stuff. That made the things more and more simpler, right? Now, if I really wanted to see the code for that quick table calculation that we have created, right? Now I can very well go into the editing of that quick table calculation. Come here. Where is it? So the quick table calculation, whatever we were created, now come to this measure value. You could see that you can do the editing. When you are saying edit, right, edit table calculation, so it is saying I am doing a percentage of the total, and the summarized value is from advanced at the deepest level. That is what is being performed there. And in some cases I could look at Okay. So yeah, if I say edit in the shell, I could see here we are computing the summation of the sales, right? That is what we are doing as a part of the measure value. We are doing the summation of the sales. And here also, if I'm looking at, so the basic quick table calculation, if I really want to see the code, where do I get the, alright. Now let's look at, let's say the measure names, right? So the measure names actually defines the column headings, right? The names of the different measures. And the names include the type of the quick table calculations. So where the calculation has to happen. In case of quick table, the name, whatever we are choosing for the category and the subcategory. So the furniture and bookcases, the addition will happen at this level. So the names include whatever the name that you are given. They include the type of quick table calculation, the scope and the direction. So here, if you look at the mechanism, it is saying quick table calculation compute using. So if I say table down, so the table down in a, I can say whether I want it table down, tables, table across, or those kind of stuff. Now, what is that we do there? Let's say I want to do the computations for all of them, right? Let me take the simple way to look at. Let's say I'll take the date, right? For us, easy way to understand. Let me take the order date. Let me pull out all these things. Okay. Initially, I have an order date. So I'll expand it, let's say quarter wise. So I have 2011 Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, right? Now, these are the sales numbers for each of the periods. Now, if I want, okay, this is a percentage of the total. But let's say I want one more, right? I want to add one more sales out here, right? I want to add one more sales out here. This time I want to bring in a new calculation, okay, instead of new. Here all I want to bring out is okay, instead of let's say sum of sales, let's say I want to bring out the running total. Now I get this as the running total. So 74 plus 86, 160 plus 143, 304. So the total comes out to be something like this. This becomes the running total. Now let's say I want to change that quick table calculation as a difference. Now the difference 86 minus 74, 12. 143 minus 86, which is 57. It goes more like this. Now if the same, I want to take it as a percentage difference. Okay, the difference between the two is 16%. The difference between the two is 65%, and so on. Now the same logic, right? If I want to say percentage total is fine, rank. So this will be the first rank. So I'll get the rank period wise. And similarly, if I am interested in looking at percentile, right? So this is the 6th percentile, 6.67 percentile. This is 13 percentile. So based on the rank, this is 0 percentile because it's the least, the next least, the next highest. So the next least. So and finally the highest one will get the 100 percentile. So that is what is coming out as a part of the percentile. And similarly, I can very well compute the moving averages, right? So this is like average. So 74 plus 86 average 80. So 74 plus 86 plus 143 average 101. So the moving averages work out in that particular manner. Similarly, I can talk about the year till date. Now here, okay, year till date total. So in this, within this particular year, 74, 160, so it goes up to the year. Now it's a new year again starting at 68, 157 up to 470. So this is going as year till date. The same way I can very well go about the compounded growth rate. Okay, so right from this point I'm trying to see what is the kind of compounded growth rate. So with respect to this particular period. So with respect to this period, I'm looking at the compounded growth rate between each of the data points, which is telling me these kind of numbers. Then similarly, I can look at year on year kind of a growth, all these kinds of calculation. So the table calculations are being calculated down the table, one after the other, one after the other. Right? When we are talking about running total, so 1, 1, 1, 1, they are being added in this typical way until I go to the last. And probably the final row is looking like a grand total. Right? So that is the default kind of a setup that we are getting. But in some cases, I may not be interested in taking it like this. I may want a different kind of, here it is adding all of them together. But probably I may be interested in only adding up to 2011 or only 2012 or some such kind of customizations I want to bring in while I am grouping the values. And those are the things that come into the perspective of the scope and direction. Right? So they are the terms which actually describe how the table calculation should be done relative to a table. So relative to the particular table, how the table calculation has to be done. So even if the rearranging, we have done the rearranging of the fields in the view, the scope and the direction will not change. Now what are the scope and direction? The scope simply says what is the boundary? What is the boundary within which a given table calculation can reference the other values? And within that particular scope, in what direction the table calculation has to move? Right? What is the scope where the table calculation is applied? And within that scope, what is the direction? Will it move across like this or will it move down like this? How does it move in terms of doing the calculation? In general, we see a table down kind of a mechanism, but need not be the case. It can do in either of the cases. So when we say the scope is the whole table, probably for this example, it should have been like the scope is the whole table. When we give, let's say, table calculation, let's say rank, it's like the scope is the whole table. The scope is whole table and we are going in a down kind of a direction. Look at a running total or percentage of total, whatever it is. Let's say I want running total. So it's like the scope is the whole table and we are going from top to the bottom. The direction was down. So the running table calculation, whatever we have performed, it started right from the top of the table to the bottom of the entire table and it has continued in that way. But now if I really want, I can specify or I can define the scope and direction for the table calculation. So for that, I will use the view. I will use this drop down. Let's say that particular field, right? I will use, okay, this is the computation. I'll click on the drop down and I say compute using, instead of table down, I have many other options as well here, right? Instead of simply saying table down, I have panel down, pane across then down, pane down then across, lot of things. And all of them will vary slightly depending on the dimension that is present in the view, right? And after that, you also have a kind of a calculation for a cell. Again, there are a few more lists. Now, if you click on the cell, there could be a different way of computation. Here, it's not of a big difference, but in some cases, now you could see it is doing an aggregation at the cell level. So, which means all of them are more or less the same. But if I have changed the table computation using the table down, then across the board it is adding. Scope is the entire table. So each of them we need to get a hold on. So when we talk about the scope, there are three things. Now when we talk about the scope, I am looking at the whole table as a scope, right? Or I am looking at the entire pane as a scope, or only cell as a scope. Now to demonstrate all those things, let's take a very simple example, right? Let me keep here this thing as it is. So I have year and quarter, but let's say I want to pull the region into the column. So I am getting central, east, south, west kind of regions. And if possible, let me also drag category as well, right, to bring much more. Now for central I have three categories, for east I have three, for west I have three, and for south also I have three categories. Now in this whole thing is a table. This entire thing is a table. So when you are saying the scope is the table, the aggregation happens at this level. But when we are saying pane is primarily this aspect. So here up this much part is a pane, which means it is primarily the second to the last dimension. The first dimension is typically omitted. So the first dimension, if I take it as a year, it is omitting everything in the first dimension. So from Q1, and even here it is going from the second dimension. So this part, so this is one pane, this is second. So for 2011 there are 4 panes, 12 there are 4 panes, 13 4 panes, 14 4. So there are 16 panes overall in my data here. So that is what we are calling as the pane. So it's an intersection of year on the rows and the region on the columns. So this much is one single pane. Then if we are talking of cells, each one is a separate cell. Now I really want to see whether my quick table calculations that I am using, they need to be aggregated at the whole table level or a pane level or at the cell level. The scoping and the directions come from that perspective. This is the scoping part. And once I had that scoping, I need to know the direction. How should the aggregation happen? So is it like it should happen within the pane, it should happen down? Or if I define the, let's say the pane, within the pane should it happen down? Should it happen across the running total? How do I want? Across, down, then across, or across, then down? Similarly, if I am saying the scope is the table, again I should say whether it is down, across, or what it is. So the direction talks about, am I going down? Am I going across? Am I going down and then across? Or am I going across and then down? Now, we can really understand all that processes quite easier when we take some simple examples. So let's work with scope and direction to get a clarity in our whole stuff, right? So I'll create a new calculated field, right? I'll create a new calculated field. I'll call it as index 1 or index 2. I'm using the formula called index symbol, right? I've used the formula called index. Now it's like an auto increment kind of stuff. So I will simply keep year and quarter, take out the regions and all, because after that you can very easily add it. Once you get a clarity, you can very well add all the stuff. So let me pull out all of them. So there is year and a quarter. Now what I simply do is I bring that index. Or probably I can still keep region, right? Let me still keep the region and probably the category also. So this is the structure. Now instead of pulling the sales and all, right, what I'll do is I'll take that index into the text field just to understand. Okay, right now it is showing 1 1 1 1 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 12. So these are the computations the index has done. Now look at what is that compute using doing. It is saying table across. So the indexing is done using table across, means the summation or the index as a formula is applied in this direction across. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 12. Again, because it's across, it's 1 to 12. So across it is 1 to 12. But now if I change it, let's say to down, you will see 1 2 3 4 going from top to down. So you will see 1 2 3 4 5 6 up to 16 going from top to bottom, right? This is how the table works, depending on whether we have selected the entire table, right? Here we are simply saying at the table level we have used across, here we are using down. Now if I say across and then down, it means 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18. So it goes more like that, across and then down. So everything is summed in this manner, right? And next, let's say if I say down and across, again 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 16 17 18 19 20 21 22, it comes in this direction. Now what else? Then pane across. Now this is the only pane, this is the pane. So within this pane it will take across 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. So within the pane it will do the indexing. So you will get only 1 2 3s. Now you are getting how it applies. Similarly, when I say pane down, within each pane it will take 1 2 3 4. So it's only 1 2 3 4s appearing. And then if you are saying pane across and then down, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12. Pane down and then across, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Within the pane the calculation happens. So even this part is clear. And now when I say cell, it's at cell level, so everything is 1. So because cell is one single value. Now there are other two things. One is the category, order date, region. So these are the things that come when we are bringing in the concepts of address and partitioning. Right? When we are talking only from the scope and direction perspective, you can just look at all these calculated compute using kind of stuff, and all these are really helping us doing that. Now, when I come to addressing and partitioning, another important aspect which is probably similar to scope and direction. In scoping, we are talking about three aspects. One is the table, one is a pane, the other one is a cell. And directions we have seen within the table, again we are talking about across, down, down and across and down. So this is what is the direction and the pane. Now whereas when we are talking of addressing and partitioning, to a large extent they are similar to scope and direction. Right? Scope is more similar to partitioning and direction is more similar to addressing. We'll see how they are different. But generally, what is the difference is they are used to describe how the table calculations are computed with absolute reference. So here it's not relative reference. Earlier we talked about as relative reference for all the scope and direction. Here it is absolute reference. So I will refer to a particular field which is there in the view. So with respect to that particular field, the table calculation is going to happen. So which dimensions which are present in the view? I am clearly specifying not across, down and all. Which dimensions in the view, they define the scope, which is more of partitioning. So on which grounds my whole table gets partitioned, and on which dimension within each of the scope, the addressing, which is the direction, the addressing or the direction actually happen. So this is giving you more and more finer control, because nothing is relative here. We are not saying down, across, because sometimes if the data presentation changes, the rows become columns, columns become rows, probably our entire computation is changed. But here, because we are referring to specific fields, even if I transpose them, change the rows into columns and columns into rows, nothing is going to happen. So this is more and more absolute, so I get much finer control. Calculations, table calculations are no longer relative to the layout of the table. I can very well fine tune the scope, direction, which are not there in the earlier cases. I can very well get into the fine tuning of the scope and the direction also. Right? So let's look at that aspect. Right? See what is that fine tuning that I can do. Now I can go to, let's say, compute using, but this time I will go with, right, this time let's say I'll go with category. I want to look at category. Now when I'm looking at the category, so what is happening for each category, there is an indexing that came up. So the partitioning has actually happened based on the category. Compute using category. So for compute using Okay. So if I have set it to region, I'm getting that all belonging to one region, they are given one single number. So 1, 2, 3, 4. But when I have said do the computation or indexing using category, so all the category, the furniture category is being given 1, the office supplies category is being given 2, and so on. So again, it is, now if you see, I say that compute using the category, right? So what it is telling is you compute the index in the direction of the selected dimension. So the dimension that you have selected is the category. So in the direction of the selected dimension, you do the index 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So because we have done it category wise, it is doing in the direction of the department that I have selected. Similarly, instead of this, if I had selected the region, within the region it is saying do the so across the region do the indexing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it is telling me to do the indexing in that particular manner. And in, so which means in other words, I have actually defined this particular category, right? This particular category as addressing. So whatever the category that I have defined, so I have defined this category as addressing, so which is like a direction. This particular category is being set as a direction. So all the other dimensions, they are used implicitly for partitioning. So all others, so now because I have said this is the direction, all others implicitly are used for the partitioning purpose. They are the ones that are defining the scope or the boundary at which the index should restart. Right? That's how the simplicity is coming out. Now, if I am setting a simple, another better way to look at, right? If I am setting the index, let's say I put, let's say pane across. I'm getting exactly the same. And if I am putting category, I'm getting it more or less the same. The only difference being, if the look and feel of the data is changed, the pane across would create a difference, whereas this one will still not alter the, see this one based on the dimension, based on the category that we have, based on the category depending on where it is, the 1, 2, 3s will be assigned accordingly. Whereas if in the earlier case when I had used pane across, it may not be doing the indexing across categories. It may be doing, now let's say the simple example, I do something like this. Now you see, if because I have used this category, I got it as 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. 1, 2, 3. But now if I had used pane across, I'm getting a different set of values. Right? Because within a pane, it is saying do across. Whereas in the earlier case, now you see here, if I change it like this, it becomes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But when we are doing it, let's say using the category, whether I put it like this or I put it like this, for that particular category, the value is going to be 2, 3 in the same way itself. So that is what is the difference that we are talking of. Right? Now, even when I swap the rows and columns and all, there is, it is doing only by the category itself. Now the Tableau actually allows us to define the addressing and the partitioning. Now, okay, I go to this index field. I say edit table calculation. Now I can do all these things. Compute using, okay, I'm doing the computation using the department or the category. And if you look at the compute using, I can have any of these things. So either I can select this as the relative stuff, right? Or this could be more and more absolute. So any one single dimension can be used for the addressing part. And at the bottom, we even have advanced. So what I can do, I can click on this advanced, which will give me some more flexibility. Okay, the quarter of the order date, region, year of order. So by default, it is ordered by the category. But let's say I want to even include region also into it. So first by category, and within that category, I want to do the ordering by region. So let's say this is the kind of order I want to specify. All right. And at the level, by default, it is the deepest level itself. And I say restart every, if I want to restart at every category, I can very well do that as well. Okay. If I am clicking on apply, now I see a different logic altogether. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because what is happening here, now let me look at this. When we have edited it, I've gone to the advanced level where the calculation that we have done is, right, let's look at the calculation that we have done. So here we are using compute using the advanced, and that advanced we have, let's say I put something else, and the advanced we have actually defined 1 as the category, 2 as the region. So it says first you do the addressing based on the category. So all in the category will be will start to index them. But again, within that category, we are talking of the region. So what does that mean? So now the category is furniture. Within that category, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the indexing that is being done. Then again, office supplies, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this was not possible when we were using the scope and direction mechanism, when we are using the relative kind of mechanism. But when we were using the addressing and partitioning, we are able to define the partitions and define the addressing. And we are able to move the dimensions back and forth between the partitioning and addressing. Right? So with this kind of an example, I have selected both the category as well as the region. So the way the addressing has typically moved. Now even if I select the region here, okay, what is happening? First it's the category. Within that category, this is the region. Now even if I swap it like this, so the category, and within each category different regions are coming out. So when we are defining it, generally the calculation is at the deepest level. But sometimes if you really want to set it at a different level where you don't want the entire deepest level, fair enough, you can very well modify that. But the other part that comes out is the restart every. So if I really see, if it is making the field that is selected, and so if I really start like this category, so what is happening is it is restarting for every category. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So for every category, there is a starting number that is coming out. Even that way, one more addressing is coming. So what you could see is you can really play around once you know the indexing. Once you know the addressing and partitioning. Partitioning is how do you want to split your whole table, and addressing is within that table in what order the aggregation or table calculation should work. So if I am having a good understanding of these different aspects, table calculations can do wonders for our data, which can really help us in our visualization go to a next advanced level, right? So you need to practice a little bit more to get a good hold on the table calculations in Tableau. But of course, that's a very wonderful feature to typically get a hold on. All right. So thanks a lot for listening to this session. Thank you very much.